When she said it, she was barefoot, leaning against the edge of our kitchen island, sipping a glass of rose like she was ordering Thai for dinner. I've been thinking, Laura said, avoiding eye contact. I want to explore. Us being open. There wasn't a tremor in her voice. That hit me harder than the words themselves. I was halfway through slicing a lime for the gin and tonics we usually reserve for Friday nights. Her casual tone made me pause mid-slice. The knife tapped the cutting board twice before I put it down. Open? I asked. My voice sounded almost amused. Calm. Controlled. Which, to be honest, scared the shit out of me. She smiled. Almost relieved. Mistaking my calm for agreement, for understanding. Yeah, she said, stepping around the counter and placing her wine glass on the granite top. Not forever. Just some breathing room. We've been married for 7 years. I think it could be good for us. She reached out and ran a hand down my forearm like she was soothing a wild dog. I love you, Jake. This isn't because I don't. I just want to feel something. A spark again. A spark. That word hit me like a punch to the ribs. You want to find your spark by fucking someone else? I should have shouted. Slammed a door. Begged her not to do this. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. A cold, hollow smile. One I'd never worn before. Not with her. Not in our home. Yeah, I said, slowly wiping my hands on a towel. Why not? Her mouth parted slightly. That wasn't the answer she expected. She blinked. Confused. Wait, really? Sure, I said, as if I was agreeing to try oat milk for the first time. You want freedom, right? That's fair. Laura lit up. She took it as maturity, as evolution, as her finally having a modern husband. I'm so glad you understand, she said, stepping forward and hugging me tight, pressing her body into mine. I could smell the rose lotion she always wore after long showers. The one I used to bury my face in when she lay across me in bed. She kissed my neck. I didn't return the favor, but I didn't pull away either. This, I thought, was going to be easy. She wanted an open marriage? Fine. But she had no idea what she was actually asking for. The first few days were full of excited energy. Hers, not mine. Laura started hitting the gym again, suddenly invested in how tight her stomach looked in the mirror. She bought new makeup. She started wearing heels again, the kind that clicked hard on our hardwood floors as she left for drinks with a friend. Every step screamed, "Look at me." I did. Silently. She came home late on Thursday night. Tipsy. Hair messy. Lipstick half-worn. Sorry, she giggled, kicking off her heels. The conversation just went on and on. I was on the couch, reading a book I wasn't really absorbing. I looked up, smiled like the docile husband she wanted, and said, "Hope it was a good one." Her eyes searched mine, waiting for judgment, for jealousy. I gave her nothing. She tried again. It was just dinner. Honestly. You don't owe me an explanation, I said. You're free now, remember? She laughed too loud. You're too chill, Jake. And maybe I was. On the outside. But inside, I was studying her. Every blink. Every brush of her hair. Every fake laugh she let out when she mentioned some guy's name I shouldn't worry about. I was memorizing the cracks in her armor, the small ways guilt tried to creep in, and how she drowned it in Sauvignon Blanc and affirmations from TikTok therapists. She thought this was the beginning of her sexual rebirth. What she didn't know? This was the beginning of my plan. I slept next to her that night, our backs not touching. Her body radiated heat, perfumed and electric, like she still carried someone else's breath on her skin. I stared at the ceiling. She thought I'd cry. She expected me to beg, to rage, to tell her she was throwing everything away for a fantasy. But instead, I let her fall into the illusion, the fantasy of freedom, sexual power, validation. And while she danced in that spotlight, I started crafting the shadows behind it. She told me she downloaded Field. Not Tinder, not Bumble. Field, the ethical non-monogamy app for mature, enlightened, consensual adventurers. She said it like she was telling me she tried a new wine bar. I matched with this guy. He's interesting. Into meditation, tantra, that kind of thing. She smiled nervously. I sipped my coffee. Tantra, huh? Sounds intense. I don't know if I'm going to meet him, she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. Just talking for now. Good for you. She blinked. You're really okay with this? I leaned forward, took her hand, and gave it a soft squeeze. Laura, you asked for this. I'm supporting you. Inside, I wanted her to burn in the silence between my words. Here's what she didn't realize. You don't ask for an open marriage to save something. You ask when you want permission to leave it, piece by piece. Laura didn't want freedom. She wanted indulgence without consequence. She thought I'd fall apart. And when I didn't, when I played her game better than she did, that was when the guilt would really take hold. She thought she'd be the only one exploring. But I already had a plan. And her little fantasy? It was about to get devoured by something far more real than she could imagine. 3 weeks into the agreement, I started pulling away, not loudly, not dramatically. That would have triggered her guilt, made her second-guess her decision. No, I wanted her to believe that I was thriving in the distance. Thriving without her. It started with small things. I stopped texting her during the day. No more check-ins. No how's your day going, or need anything from the store. I let her initiate everything, and when she did, I kept my replies minimal, almost polite. She noticed. I could see it in the way she lingered at the doorway when I sat reading, the hesitation in her voice when she asked what I was doing that night. You've been quiet lately, she said one Saturday morning while folding her yoga mat in the living room. Are you okay? Yeah, I said. I'm just giving you space. She blinked. Oh, no gratitude. No joy. Just a flicker of uncertainty. The first drop of discomfort. It landed soft, but it rippled. That was all I needed. She left an hour later in a flurry of perfume and lip gloss, her dress hugging her in all the ways it used to for me. She paused at the mirror longer than usual. I didn't compliment her. She didn't like that. She wanted me to ask, to chase, to flare with jealousy so she could say, "This is hard for both of us, see?" Instead, I waved from the couch. "Have fun," I said flatly, eyes still on the TV. When the door closed behind her, I turned off the screen, stood, and grabbed my keys. It was time to see Sierra. The yoga studio sat 2 blocks from my office, unassuming from the outside, but inside it smelled of eucalyptus and new beginnings. I started going months ago at Laura's suggestion, back when she was still pretending to care about our connection. At first, it was just another way to keep the peace. But I kept going. Not for peace. For Sierra. She was the lead instructor, graceful, lean, with an effortless sensuality that didn't beg for attention but stole it anyway. Her skin was caramel gold, and her voice? Soft, deep, like secrets whispered in candlelight. The first time I met her, she corrected my warrior pose and let her hand slide down my shoulder, adjusting the alignment. That touch stayed with me for days. When I stepped into her 7 p.m. class again, she smiled. Not a generic studio smile, but something more curious. "Jake," she said, brushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Haven't seen you in a while." "Been busy," I replied, letting my eyes linger on her for a second longer than polite. "Thought I'd come sweat some of it out." "Well, you came to the right place." She winked. I didn't imagine it. That was the moment. The seat I needed. I moved my mat near the front, close enough to hear her breath, to smell the lavender oil she used on her wrists. Every pose she demonstrated was fluid, hypnotic. She moved like a promise, like she knew how to make someone feel wanted. And I let myself look. Not stare, not gawk. Just let the hunger leak through in quick, stolen glances. She saw. She always saw. After class, as others packed up and shuffled out, I lingered. Pretended to check my phone. She walked past and hesitated. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head. I hesitated, then said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." I let a breath out, kept my tone casual. "Do you believe people are meant to be with one person forever?" Her brows rose slightly, not judging, intrigued. "That's a big question," she said, leaning against the cubby wall. "What's going on?" I gave her a sliver of the truth, just enough to bait the hook. "My wife and I are trying something different." She wanted an open marriage. I said it like I didn't know what to think of it. Like I was the supportive husband caught in a new world I never asked for. Sierra's lips parted slightly. "Wow, and you agreed to that?" I gave her a slow, sad smile. She said it would help us grow, find ourselves again. I didn't want to lose her. There it was, the flicker of empathy in her eyes, the soft furrow of her brow, the slight shake of her head. "That's rough," she said. "Sounds like you're doing all the giving." I shrugged. "I'm just trying to be the guy she says she needs." Sierra stepped closer. "Just a fraction." "Well, that's more than most would do. Honestly, I think you deserve better than someone who doesn't see what she already has." Bingo. The seed had taken root. I went home that night, and found Laura scrolling through her phone on the patio, legs curled under her in her silk robe, the one she only used when she wanted to feel sexy for someone. "Hey," she said, glancing up. "You're late." "Yoga ran long," I replied. She blinked. "You've been going a lot lately." I shrugged. "Helps me clear my head." She nodded slowly, setting her phone down, screen down. "You never asked me how my date went," she said. I paused. "Do you want me to?" "I don't know," she said. "Isn't that what open couples do?" I leaned against the doorway and gave her a soft smile. I figured we didn't need to share every detail. "I trust you." Her face faltered. She thought this would be painful for me. She expected glimmers of anger, of weakness. But all she got was my calm. And it scared her more than rage ever could. "I'm going to shower," I said. "Long class." She didn't answer, just stared after me as I walked inside, muscles sore, heart cold, and the plan quietly blooming behind every smile. The following week, I started going to Sierra's class every other day. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't just stretching my hamstrings. I was weaving a story, one carefully tailored to make her feel something for me. Not just desire, not lust, but empathy, concern, loyalty. Those emotions run deeper than attraction. They build connections that don't snap overnight. And Sierra was exactly the kind of woman who couldn't ignore someone hurting. It started with the smallest things. A wince when I reached too far in triangle pose. A pause after class, letting my breath linger like something had broken behind my ribs. And finally, a moment outside the studio, just as the sun was dipping low over the trees, that cracked the dam open. "You okay?" she asked as she walked beside me to our cars. Her tone wasn't casual anymore. I turned to her, let out a breath. "Yeah," I said. "No, I don't know." Sierra leaned back against the side of her car, arms crossed. Her leggings clung to her body in a way that would have made any man look, and I did, but only for a second. Because this wasn't about physical tension yet. This was the setup. "This open marriage thing," I said. "I thought I could handle it. I thought if I just stayed calm, supportive, maybe she'd come back. Maybe she'd realize what she already had." Sierra's brows furrowed. "She's seeing someone?" I laughed, but it came out bitter. "More than one, I think. She dresses up, puts on perfume she never used to wear for me, comes home smelling like bars and cologne, and when I ask how her night was, she just smiles and says, 'Good.'" Sierra's jaw tightened. "Jesus, that's brutal." I looked at her, let her see the pain I wanted her to see. I just didn't expect to feel disposable, like I was a placeholder for when she got bored of experimenting. Sierra stepped closer, her voice low. "Jake, I don't know how you're holding it together. I mean, that's not love. That's selfish." She said it with heat, the kind that comes from seeing injustice and wanting to fix it. That was the moment I knew. She was in this with me now. "You're strong," she added, quieter. "I don't think I could stay that calm if I were in your shoes." I smiled softly. "Honestly, the only thing keeping me sane is coming here. This studio. You." She looked away, just briefly, but I caught the warmth rising in her cheeks. Bingo. That weekend, Laura left again. She didn't say where she was going. Just walked into the bedroom Friday night wearing something red and silky and told me not to wait up. "I'll be late," she said, applying lipstick in the mirror like I wasn't even there. "Have fun," I said, laying back on the bed, flipping a page in my book. No questions. No hesitation. She stopped for a second, like she was waiting for a fight. I didn't give her one. When the door clicked shut behind her, I didn't exhale in pain. I smiled. And I texted Sierra. "Hey, didn't mean to dump all that on you the other night. Hope you're doing okay." She replied in under a minute. "Hey, you didn't dump anything. I've actually been thinking about you a lot. You free tomorrow?" Saturday came, and the studio was quiet when I arrived. She'd offered to meet early, said it'd be peaceful without the crowd, and I could get one-on-one instruction. But I knew this wasn't about yoga. When I stepped inside, she was already on the mat, barefoot, wearing a simple black tank top and shorts, her hair tied back in a loose braid. "You made it," she said, smiling. But there was something different in her eyes, something searching. I took the mat beside her. We didn't speak much for the first 20 minutes. She guided me through breathing work, a few balance poses, small corrections. Her hands brushed mine once, accidentally, I think. But she didn't pull away immediately. When we paused to hydrate, I finally said it. "I'm not trying to play the victim." She turned to me, sitting cross-legged, brow raised. What do you mean? I agreed to the open marriage, I said slowly. I told her it was fine. I said, yeah, why not? Sierra blinked. You agreed? I did. But only because I wanted to see how far she'd go. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to cry. I wanted her to have her fantasy. And I wanted her to feel what it's like when the person you love doesn't chase after you anymore. Sierra sat still, processing. She exhaled. That's not passive. That's calculated. I nodded. Yeah. She studied me, and for a moment I thought she might get angry. But instead, she said, so what now? You're just waiting for her to break? I said. But now, I don't know. Now I'm starting to realize maybe I'm the one breaking. I looked directly at her, and the only time I feel like I'm not drowning is when I'm with you. Her breath hitched. She didn't speak. Instead, she reached out and placed her hand on top of mine. I don't know what this is, she whispered. But you don't deserve what she's doing. And if you need someone, even just a friend, I'm here. I flipped my hand over, letting our palms touch fully. That means more than you know. And we just sat there like that, breathing, connected. No kiss. Not yet. That would come soon. But right then, all I needed was for her to feel like she was the safe place. Because once she believed that, she'd follow me into the fire. You're really okay with this? Laura asked that as she pulled on a short skirt I hadn't seen in years, when I bought her on a whim during our second anniversary trip to Cabo. It used to be something she wore just for me, spinning in front of the hotel mirror with no bra, and that wicked smirk that made me think about undressing her with my teeth. Now it was paired with red lipstick, heels that clicked too loud, and perfume she'd never worn before. Of course, I said, adjusting my watch like it was any other Tuesday. You wanted freedom. I'm giving it to you. She gave me a tight smile and leaned over to grab her purse. I caught the faintest pause just before she turned away. Hesitation, uncertainty, maybe guilt. But she smothered it quickly, burying it beneath a false confidence she was trying too hard to wear. Don't wait up, she said. I won't. That was the dance now. She left. I let her. But while she chased her version of liberation, I was weaving mine. That week, I made a few strategic adjustments. I stopped volunteering information. No more. I'm heading to the gym or grabbing dinner with the guys. Instead, I came and went as I pleased, exactly what Laura thought she wanted. When she asked, I kept my answers vague. Out. Running errands. Just catching up on things. And I never asked her where she'd been. Never flinched when she came home later than usual. Never wrinkled my nose at the scent of someone else's cologne. I even stopped sleeping in the same bed some nights, claimed I'd passed out on the couch while watching something. One time, I told her I had an early morning yoga session and didn't want to disturb her. It was subtle, but the emotional distance was growing like ivy, climbing silently, suffocating everything. Laura couldn't stop herself from noticing. She came home Friday night, tipsy, trying too hard to seem unfazed. Her makeup was smudged, and her phone never left her hand. But I could see it. The flicker of discomfort when she walked into the kitchen and saw me, already dressed, keys in hand. Going out? She asked, arching an eyebrow. Yeah, I said simply. Anyone I know? I gave her a half smile. That's kind of the point of this, isn't it? Her mouth opened slightly, like she had something to say. But she didn't. She just nodded. Okay, we'll have fun. Always do. I left her standing there in her heels and empty confidence, staring at the door long after it closed. Sierra and I met later that night. Not at the studio, but a quiet wine bar tucked in a side street just off downtown. Candlelit tables. Slow jazz playing low. A place where confessions felt safe. She was already there when I arrived, nursing a glass of red, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. God, she looked good. Not made up. Not dressed for seduction. Just a soft, clinging sweater that hinted at the curve of her waist, and jeans that sat low on her hips. Effortless. Real. Hey, she said, her smile slow and soft. Hey, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. You been waiting long? Not really, she said. I like watching people. And what did you see tonight? She tilted her head, thoughtful. A lot of people pretending they're happier than they are. I huffed a quiet laugh. That's everyone lately. She sipped her wine. You look better. Calmer. I'm learning to let go, I said, locking eyes with her. Of expectations. Of pretending I'm okay when I'm not. Talking to you helps. That earned a small smile. We didn't touch. Not yet. But our knees brushed under the table once, and neither of us moved away. We talked for hours. About yoga. About life. About what it meant to feel discarded and still hold your head up high. She told me about her last relationship, a controlling boyfriend who weaponized silence until she felt like she was going crazy. You ever feel like someone's waiting for you to break just so they can feel better about what they've done? She asked. All the time, I said. We lingered in that silence, heavy, charged. And then I said something I knew would hit her deeper than anything else. I think I started this whole thing because I wanted her to see what it feels like to be replaced. Sierra's gaze locked with mine. You're not replaceable, Jake. Her voice was quiet, fierce. I wish she believed that, I said. I do. That moment, just those 2 words, lit a fire that had been smoldering since our first conversation. I didn't reach across the table. I didn't kiss her, but I saw it in her eyes. She wanted me to. Not yet. Not here. Not while we were still building the illusion that this was innocent. But we both knew that wall wouldn't hold much longer. Back home, Laura was pretending to sleep when I walked in. I didn't say a word. Just showered, toweled off, and slid into bed without touching her. I knew she was awake. Her breathing was too even, too measured. The smell of someone else's perfume clung faintly to her skin. Not mine. I turned my back to her and smiled. She thought she had me under control, that I'd roll over and beg when the loneliness got too loud. But all she was doing was pushing me further away, right into the arms of someone who already knew I deserved better. A few days later, I caught her watching me from the hallway mirror. I was tying my shoes for another yoga session, and she leaned against the doorframe like she didn't care. But her eyes, they betrayed her. Going again helps me stay grounded. She hesitated. You've been different. I stood, grabbed my water bottle. Just evolving. She forced a laugh. Right? Maybe I should start yoga too. You should. And I walked past her without another word. The distance? It was no longer emotional. It was real. It was wide. And she could feel herself slipping out of reach. The first time Laura hesitated at the door in lingerie, I didn't even look up from my book. She stood in the hallway mirror, adjusting her garter belt like she was posing for someone. The soft click of her heels on the wood floor echoed, sharp, rhythmic, deliberate. Designed to draw my attention, I turned a page. Nothing more. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her check her reflection one more time, running her fingers along the sheer line of her thigh highs. Her lips parted like she was about to say something, but I beat her to it. Don't wait up, I said flatly, eyes still on the page. She blinked. What? I might be late tonight. Grabbing drinks after class. That was a lie, but it was exactly the kind she'd been telling for weeks, and I wanted her to feel it, just for a moment. The slow twist in the gut, the ache of uncertainty, the little voice that whispers, maybe he's with someone. Oh, she said, adjusting her purse strap. Okay. She waited. Still, I didn't look up. She left a minute later. The door shut quietly, like she wasn't sure if I even noticed. I noticed. I just didn't care. Not anymore. She texted me that night, for the first time in a while. Hope your drinks went well. Miss you tonight. I stared at the message for a long time before locking my phone and tossing it on the couch. No reply. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was being surgical. Because I knew Laura. I knew the version of herself she believed in. The desirable woman on a sexual renaissance. Liberated, powerful, envied. She thought she was starring in her own romantic reinvention. But what she really wanted was to taste freedom, while I stayed safely behind her, waiting, loving, loyal. That wasn't going to happen. She came home to an empty house the next night. I didn't answer her calls until morning. You've been out a lot lately, she said as I poured coffee the next day. Yeah, I replied. Feels good not to sit around waiting. Her expression flickered. Are you seeing someone? I gave her a small smile. Measured. Not smug, not bitter, just calm. Isn't that the point? She let out a nervous laugh, like she wasn't sure if I was joking. I wasn't. Laura's eyes searched my face for a long moment, then dropped to her mug. She stirred it too long, metal clinking ceramic in a pattern that didn't need to happen. I guess it's just weird, she said softly. You've been so okay with all of this. I sipped my coffee. I told you, Laura. I want you to have what you want. And what if I don't know what I want anymore? I paused, then met her eyes, steady. Then maybe it's time to figure that out. I walked away and left her sitting at the kitchen island, lips slightly parted, stirring cold coffee like she didn't know what the hell she was doing anymore. At yoga, Sierra noticed something different in me. You're lighter, she said during Savasana. Her voice hushed over the soft studio music. Like something shifted. I opened my eyes. Maybe I just finally stopped waiting for someone to come back. She knelt beside me, her fingers gently brushing my shoulder to ground me in the moment. I think she's realizing she lost you. I didn't respond, but I let my hand linger near hers when I sat up. And when I caught her eyes, I didn't look away. Laura began dressing less provocatively at night. The outfits became simpler. Her makeup lighter. She stopped announcing when she was going out. Sometimes she didn't even bother leaving at all. She hovered more. Came into the living room when I was watching TV. Sat closer than she used to. Laughed a little louder. Asked what I was doing that weekend. You're free to do your own thing. I told her one evening when she offered to make dinner. I know, she said, chewing her lip. I just thought, maybe we could reconnect a little. I tilted my head. Reconnect? Yeah, she said. We've both been doing our thing. Maybe we should, I don't know, check in. I stared at her for a long moment. What changed? She hesitated. Nothing. I just miss you sometimes. I leaned back in the chair, folding my arms. I gave you what you asked for, Laura. Space. No judgment. You've been living the dream. I figured this was what you needed. I thought it was, she admitted. But, she didn't finish. Didn't have to. Because that was it. The first real crack in the fantasy. It was all fun and games when she could play the role of desired, adventurous woman while her husband stayed safely devoted in the background. But now, she saw me moving forward. And she didn't like it. The next week, she came into the kitchen early one morning. No makeup, robe loosely tied, hair messy in a way that used to be cute. But now it looked more like someone unraveling. You've been happy lately, she said, like it was an accusation. I've been content. With someone? I gave her the same smile she used to give me when she was walking out the door. You never asked me not to. She swallowed hard. Jake, I'm not doing anything wrong, I said. I'm just following your lead. Silence settled between us. And in that silence, I saw it. Her regret. Her quiet, unspoken realization that she had opened a door, and I wasn't just walking through it. I was locking it behind me. It was the kind of late afternoon where the sun lingered just long enough to cast warm gold across the hardwood studio floors. The scent of eucalyptus hung in the air, soft and clean, and the usual post-class chatter had faded, leaving just me and Sierra behind. She was adjusting mats. I was pretending to check my phone. Neither of us wanted to leave. Everyone cleared out fast today, I said casually. Fridays are like that, she replied, kneeling beside a bolster. Date nights. Why nights? People chasing things. And what are you chasing? I asked, stepping closer. She glanced up at me, eyes thoughtful, lips parting like she might say something serious. But she smiled instead, shaking her head. I'm not chasing anything, she said. I've been still for a long time. I nodded. Sometimes stillness is scarier than movement. That made her pause. Really pause. You're not like most guys, she said after a beat. You listen. I smirked. That's just my trap. Her laugh broke through the tension like a soft exhale. Oh, and am I caught in it? I didn't answer. Because I didn't have to. She offered to help me with a specific pose that afternoon, something about lengthening my spine in a modified pigeon. It wasn't necessary. We both knew that. But I played along. She knelt behind me, her hands firm but gentle as she guided my hips into the stretch. Relax, she murmured, her voice low and velvety near my ear. Let the tension go. Her fingers slid up my lower back, slow, intentional. The way someone touches when they want to learn your body, not just fix it. I didn't move, didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. Her palms rested there, warm, still, and I could feel the pause in her breath. The awareness. My face was inches from the mat, but my pulse was roaring in my ears. Sierra, I said, voice steady. She froze. Yeah. You don't have to stop. She didn't. Instead, she let her hands slide forward just slightly, up my back, to my shoulders, across the sides of my arms. Her fingers lingered there, curling over the curve of my biceps. I finally looked up, turning toward her. Our faces were close. Too close for it to be innocent. She pulled away, fast, cheeks flushed. Sorry, she whispered. That was unprofessional. I wasn't thinking. But I reached for her wrist gently before she could step back. You didn't do anything wrong. The moment hung between us, tense, electric. She looked down at our hands. I didn't let go. Sierra, I said, voice lower now. I haven't touched anyone in months. Haven't felt, seen. Her fingers tightened slightly in mine. And then she exhaled, slow. God, Jake. She was still holding back. So I let her go. Took a step back. Gave her that space she thought she needed. I should head out, I said, grabbing my water bottle. But I'll see you next week? She nodded slowly. Yeah, of course. I turned away, but not before I saw the way her eyes lingered on my back as I walked out. When I got home that night, Laura was curled up on the couch. Pajamas. No makeup. A wine glass nearly empty in her hand. Hey, she said. Hey. I replied, setting my keys down. She didn't ask where I'd been. Didn't need to. Because her eyes told me she already knew. Or at least, feared she knew. Dinner's in the fridge if you're hungry, she added, her voice soft. Thanks. I started walking past, but she stopped me. Jake. I turned. She sat forward on the couch, knees pulled up, eyes wide and uncertain. Are we okay? I tilted my head slightly. Are you okay? She didn't answer. Just looked down into her glass. And I walked into the kitchen, feeling the power shift settle deeper into the house. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, playing that moment in the studio over and over. Sierra's hands on me, her breath hitching. That look in her eyes when she realized she wanted to cross the line. Not lust. Not yet. It was something more dangerous. Permission. The next step wasn't far. And Laura? She had no idea that the world she built was quietly imploding beneath her. The next day, Sierra texted me. I haven't stopped thinking about yesterday. I'm sorry if I crossed a line. I replied. You didn't. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't want you to. She didn't reply right away. An hour passed. Then two. Then finally. I don't want to be part of revenge, Jake. But I want you. That part feels real. I stared at the screen, heart steady. She was already in too deep to back out. It was never just about revenge. Not with you. Let's talk soon. Just you and me. The plan had never been about falling into someone else's arms. It was about destroying the fantasy Laura believed in. That she could rewrite the rules of our marriage and still keep me tethered in the background. But Sierra? She was becoming something I hadn't predicted. Not just a piece of the puzzle. She was turning into something else entirely. Real. Solid. Dangerous. And if Laura wasn't careful, she'd find out the hard way that this wasn't a game anymore. It was a reckoning. It started with her laugh. Not Sierra's. Laura's. I was walking past the bedroom, gym bag slung over my shoulder, mind halfway to the studio, when I heard it. That high, breathy laugh she used to save for moments when we were tangled in bed, half naked and teasing. Now it was coming from a phone call. Stop, she giggled. And then a long silence where I knew she was listening. Intently, hungrily. Then the laugh again. Louder. Throatier. I paused outside the door. Not out of jealousy, but because I realized something. She had no idea she was losing. She still thought this was hers to control, that I was somewhere inside our marriage, waiting like a good man with an open heart and a closed zipper. She was wrong. I didn't wait for her to notice me. Didn't slam the door or ask who was on the other end. I just walked away and headed straight for the studio. I arrived late. Sierra had just finished a private session, her face flushed, hair damp at the roots. She was alone in the lobby, rolling up a mat, but the second she saw me, her body stilled. Jake. I had to get out, I said. Didn't know where else to go. She took one look at me and crossed the room without hesitation. Come here, she said, voice low. I let her pull me into the office behind the front desk, a small, quiet room filled with oil diffusers, plants, and the faint hum of ambient music still playing from the Bluetooth speaker. The second the door shut, I collapsed onto the couch, elbows on my knees, breathing like I'd just run 3 miles uphill. She was laughing, I said, with someone else. Like it was nothing. Sierra knelt in front of me, hands on my thighs, grounding me. You don't deserve this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw everything I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Desire, comfort, need, and a hunger that had been smothered too long. I'm so tired, I said, my voice cracking. Tired of pretending I don't care. Tired of watching her fuck her way through some fantasy while I sit at home like some relic. Sierra's hands slid upward, over my knees, then paused. You don't have to be alone in this anymore, she whispered. I reached for her, and then we were kissing. It wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate. A kiss full of silence, sleepless nights, swallowed rage, and weeks of emotional tension wrapped tight like a live wire. Her mouth opened against mine, eager, needing. I pulled her into my lap, and she straddled me without hesitation, her hands in my hair, my fingers gripping her hips like I was anchoring myself to something real for the first time in months. Our bodies pressed together, heat surging between us, her breath shallow as I kissed down her neck, slow, claiming, as if I was marking a new path forward with every inch. "Tell me to stop," I whispered. She shook her head, fast. Don't stop." Her sweater hit the floor first, then my shirt. We didn't undress like lovers. We shed like people trying to climb out of their pain. The couch wasn't big enough, so we stumbled to the padded floor beside the yoga mats, mouths locked, her legs wrapping around me with a kind of hunger that made the room spin. When I entered her, it wasn't sex. It was release. It was something between fury and salvation, like both of us had been waiting to feel alive again and had finally found the person who could light the fuse. She moved against me with such raw honesty, no performative moans, no games, just that sharp inhale when I hit a spot that made her toes curl and her fingernails dig into my back. We didn't say much, just the kind of low, breathy sounds that come from people who've waited too long and held too much in. When it ended, we lay there on the floor, tangled in limbs and silence. She pressed her forehead to mine and whispered, "Now what?" I didn't lie. "I don't know," I said, "but I can't go back." I made sure to leave a trail, a used receipt from the hotel we snuck off to afterward, tucked between pages of a book on the living room shelf. A pair of yoga pants that didn't belong to Laura in the back seat of my car. A slight, lingering perfume, not one Laura wore, but one she'd recognize wasn't hers. I wasn't careless. I was calculated. This wasn't about cheating. This was about letting her find out. Because I wanted her to feel it, not just suspect it, not just wonder, but know that I had crossed the same invisible line she thought she owned, and that I did it without guilt, without apology, and maybe, just maybe, with something real at my back. She didn't say anything that night, but the next morning, she was different, quiet, tense. She didn't ask how my night was. She didn't kiss my cheek like she had the week before. Instead, she watched me pour coffee, studied me like I was a stranger in her kitchen. Maybe she could smell Sierra on me. Maybe she found the receipt already. But she didn't confront me. Not yet. She was too afraid of the answer. Too afraid to admit the man she thought would stay tethered had finally unhooked himself and started walking away. She didn't ask me that morning. Not directly. But she hovered longer than usual by the coffee pot, sipping slowly while pretending to scroll her phone. I could see it in her eyes, that flicker of something foreign. Not guilt. Not yet. Fear. "Sleep okay?" I asked, voice casual. She looked up too quickly. "Yeah. You?" I nodded. "Didn't get home till late." Her thumb stilled against the screen. "Oh, yoga ran long," I said, sipping my coffee. Sierra asked if I wanted to stick around and talk. So I did. There was the pause, a small twitch in her jaw. Her attempt at indifference was transparent. "Oh," she said, tucking hair behind her ear. "You've been spending a lot of time with her lately." "She's been there for me," I said, locking eyes. "When it's been hard." The air between us tightened. Laura blinked. "So, are you too, like seeing each other?" I gave her the same shrug she'd given me weeks ago when I asked about her lovers. "You wanted this. I just didn't think we'd get here so fast." "Here was your destination, Laura," I said calmly. "You set the route." She didn't respond, just turned away, grip tightening around her coffee mug, and I let her stew in it. She started texting less. The constant giggling over late-night messages stopped. The midnight showers after her dates faded. Instead, she lingered at home, moved more carefully, like she didn't want to break something that had already started to crack. Once, I caught her watching me in the reflection of the living room window. I was reading. Same book as always. But she wasn't looking at the pages. She was looking at me. And not like she used to. Not like a woman basking in stability. This was different. She looked like someone realizing too late what they'd gambled and lost. I saw Sierra 3 times that week. We didn't sleep together each time, not physically, but emotionally. We were fusing. We'd share coffee on the floor after class, talk about our pasts, our worst nights, our secret shames. She asked me once if I ever really loved Laura. I think I love the version she was before all this, I said. Before she needed something new. Before she decided I wasn't enough. And now, she asked. Now I don't know who she is anymore. Sierra nodded slowly, then reached out to rest her hand on mine. You're not the only one who's ever felt replaced. I leaned in, kissed her slowly, and when I pulled back, I whispered, you make it hard to regret any of this. Laura tried to reclaim ground 2 nights later. She walked into the bedroom in nothing but one of my old button-downs and those lace panties she knew used to wreck me. She stood at the doorway, watching me undress for the shower. Hey, she said, voice soft. Thought maybe we could reconnect. I paused, let my towel drop to the floor slowly. Then I turned and looked at her, naked, unbothered. You mean like you've been reconnecting with all those other guys for the last month? She blinked. Hard. That was different. Was it? She opened her mouth, closed it. I stepped closer. Not angry, not cruel, just done. I told you I didn't want this, I said. You asked for it. And now, you don't get to be surprised when I stop waiting around. Her voice cracked. You're really sleeping with her, aren't you? I looked at her, held her gaze, then said the one thing I knew would crush her more than anything else. I'm not sleeping with her, Laura. Pause. I'm staying the night. Her hand trembled. And then, without a word, she turned and walked out. She didn't leave the house for 2 days. No perfume, no dresses, no dates. She cooked dinner, like that would fix anything. Sat across from me in silence, pushing food around her plate while I casually checked my phone. She didn't ask who I was texting, but I knew she wanted to. I made sure the screen lit up with Sierra's name more than once. And when I smiled reading one of her messages, Laura quietly stood up, took her half-eaten plate to the sink, and left the room. She never came back that night. Later, I found her curled up on the couch in a blanket, eyes red. She pretended to be asleep. I didn't wake her, didn't offer comfort. She had chosen this path, thinking she could walk it without consequence. But the difference between fantasy and reality? Reality always answers back. The next morning, she was waiting in the kitchen. Fresh makeup, tight jeans, the same top she wore the first night she went out after the talk. I'm going to meet a friend, she said. Okay, I replied, not looking up. She stood still, waiting. For jealousy, a fight, a plea, something. But I just sipped my coffee and turned the page of my book. When I finally looked at her, she was staring at me like I'd become someone else. But I hadn't. She had. And I was simply the reflection of the consequences she never believed would come. I knew she'd follow me eventually. I saw it in the way her questions shifted from curious to calculated, in the way her silence stretched a little too long when I grabbed my keys and said I was off to yoga again. She tried not to make it obvious. But Laura was never good at hiding desperation. Not when it was this raw. So I wasn't surprised when I parked outside the studio one evening and saw her car trailing behind me. A few spots back, engine idling, lights off. I didn't acknowledge it. I just walked inside, let the door swing shut behind me, and headed towards Sierra like I hadn't just led my wife into the final act of the play she thought she was directing. Sierra was leaning against the front desk, hair up, yoga pants clinging to her in all the right ways, that soft, welcoming smile already forming when she saw me. Hey, she said, stepping forward. Hey, I replied. And I kissed her. Right there. Soft. Real. Unapologetic. Her hand slid up my chest like it was natural. Like she'd been waiting for that moment all day. My hands found her waist, pulled her in close. And behind us, the door creaked open. Slammed shut. Are you fucking serious? We broke apart. Sierra stepped back, eyes wide, hand still half raised like she didn't know what to do with it. I turned. Laura stood there, cheeks flushed, eyes blazing. Her fists clenched, jaw tight, every inch of her radiating betrayal, as if she'd just caught me rewriting the vows she'd already torched. You brought her here, she spat. To our place. No, I said calmly. My place. You gave up your vote when you started playing house with strangers. Sierra looked between us, stunned. Jake, what's going on? Laura turned on her, venom in her voice. What kind of woman throws herself at a married man like that? Sierra's back straightened. What kind of woman gives her husband away and then gets mad when someone else sees his worth? Laura's face twisted. You don't know what we've been through. I know enough, Sierra snapped. I know he's been treated like a backup plan while you played your little games. I stepped between them. Enough, I said, voice firm. Laura's eyes found mine, wild, wounded. You let me think this was just a phase. You let yourself think that, I replied. I gave you exactly what you asked for. Freedom. No questions. No judgment. And you ran with it. Her voice cracked. So this is payback? No, I said. This is reality. The studio had gone quiet. A few people peered from the hallway beyond, yoga mats half-rolled, whispers starting to build like static. Laura didn't care. She pointed at Sierra. She's not special. She's just convenient. Sierra flinched. I stepped closer to Laura. No, I said, tone low. She's the one who looked at me and didn't see someone to escape from. She saw someone worth keeping. Laura stared at me, and I watched it happen. The moment her fantasy shattered like a glass dropped from too high, she turned without another word and stormed out, slamming the door so hard it echoed through the entire space. Sierra stood there, breathing fast. I didn't mean for that to happen, she said. I swear I didn't know she'd. I took her hand. You didn't do anything wrong. Her fingers tightened in mine. But she looked so hurt, she whispered. She should be, I said. She's never been forced to look in a mirror before. The fallout came fast. That night, Laura texted me. We need to talk. Please. I didn't reply. The next morning, she left a note on the kitchen counter. Can we fix this? It was the first time she'd asked a question instead of making a decision for us. But the silence that followed my lack of response. It said everything. She stopped pretending after that. Stopped dressing up. Stopped staying out. She was home every night, like a ghost clinging to the last room where she thought someone might still care. But I wasn't there anymore. Not really. Sierra and I kept it quiet after the explosion, at least in public. We still met. Still talked. Still kissed. Held each other in the silence that used to feel unbearable but now felt like peace. Did I ruin your marriage? She asked once, curled up beside me on her couch. No, I said. She ruined it the moment she stopped loving me and started loving the idea of something better. And what about you? She asked. What do you love? I looked down at her freckles, her kindness, the strength in her hands that had helped hold me together without demanding anything in return. I'm figuring it out, I said. But this, you, doesn't feel like revenge anymore. She smiled softly and nestled closer. The studio survived the drama. There were whispers, sure, but people had already started picking sides, and most leaned toward Sierra. Everyone had seen how broken I'd looked when I first started coming. They'd seen the quiet unraveling. Now they were just watching the rebuild. And Laura? She didn't come back. Not to the studio. Not really to me. She just lingered at the edges, in texts, in glances, in questions that never had the courage to become conversations. She was learning the cost of freedom without foresight, and I had no intention of softening the lesson. She waited until Sunday morning to try again. The house was quiet, too quiet. No coffee brewing. No music playing through the Bluetooth speaker. Just the hum of a refrigerator and the heavy sound of footsteps that knew they no longer belonged. I was on the back patio, mug in hand, scrolling through texts from Sierra. Nothing romantic. Just small things. A meme. A quote. But the kind of small that feels intimate. Laura stepped outside like she was entering enemy territory. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't answer right away. She sat down across from me, arms folded, her robe cinched too tight, like she was trying to hold herself together physically while everything else came undone. I miss you, she said. I sipped my coffee. I know that doesn't fix anything, she continued, eyes searching. But I thought if I was honest, if I just said it. You miss me, I repeated. After everything. She winced. I made mistakes. No, I corrected. You made decisions. Silence. I thought the open thing would help us, she whispered. That maybe if we explored, we'd reconnect. I set my mug down. You didn't want reconnection. You wanted escape. You just didn't think I'd take the same door. Tears welled in her eyes. Not the dramatic kind, but the slow, painful kind that come from truth landing too late. I regret it, she said. I leaned forward. No, Laura. You regret that I stopped waiting. Her breath caught. I begged you, I said. I begged you to talk to me before all of this. To tell me what was missing. To let me in. I was scared, she admitted. So you handed me over to the void and told yourself it was growth. Her lip trembled. I didn't think you'd ever leave. There it was. The quiet confession. The core of it all. She thought I was permanent. That no matter what game she played, no matter how many nights she gave to other men, I'd be waiting. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I want you back, she said. No conditions. No open marriage. Just us. Like before. I looked at her, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. Laura, I said, soft but final. We don't exist anymore. Her shoulders shook. Don't say that. You buried us the moment you asked for something else. You just didn't notice when the coffin closed. I can be better. I believe you, I said. But I won't be here to see it. She reached across the table, grabbed my hand. Please, Jake, don't do this. I let her hold it for a moment, then gently pulled away. You wanted freedom, I said. Now you get to live in the space you created. That afternoon, I filed the paperwork. No drama. No announcement. Just a short walk downtown and a signature that had been waiting to happen for weeks. When I got home, I handed her the envelope. She looked at it like it might burn her fingers. You already decided, she whispered. I decided the night I heard you laughing on the phone with someone else like I never mattered. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I loved you, she said. I believe that, I replied. But you stopped choosing me. And love without choice is just memory. The next day, I packed a bag. She watched me from the doorway, clutching a throw pillow like a shield. Where will you go? She asked. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd once undressed slowly, kissed between every freckle, held through storms. Now she was just someone I used to know. I'm going to Sierra's for a bit, I said. Not because I need to run to someone else, but because I want to be around someone who sees me. She flinched. I walked past her, down the stairs, through the door, and into whatever came next. She texted that night. I don't know how to sleep without you next to me. I didn't reply, not out of cruelty, out of peace, because I'd already said goodbye. The moment she believed I'd always be waiting was the moment she lost me. And now, she was alone. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I had finally chosen myself. It felt strange at first, waking up in a place that didn't smell like her shampoo. No hint of Laura's perfume in the sheets, no sound of her brushing her teeth in the bathroom, no familiar clatter of her hurried morning routines. Instead, there was warmth. Sierra's soft breathing beside me, her body curled under the edge of the blanket, one arm thrown over my chest like it belonged there. And it did, in a way I hadn't let myself believe, not at first. The revenge was supposed to end here. This was supposed to be the final act. The closing curtain after months of orchestrated silence, misdirection, subtle daggers hidden behind polite smiles. But now it felt like something else entirely. Something real. She stirred when I moved. Hey, she mumbled, voice still wrapped in sleep. Hey, I whispered, brushing hair from her face. Her eyes opened, slowly focusing on mine. Did you sleep? For the first time in months, I said. Yeah. She smiled, and I felt it. Not just in my chest, but deep in that wounded, hollow place that had once been my heart. It didn't just flicker anymore. It glowed. We spent the morning in her studio. Just the two of us. The sun streaming through the windows, the hardwood warm beneath our feet. No clients, no schedule. Just slow stretches and quiet music, our bodies moving together in rhythm. Not perfectly, but easily. She guided me into a partner pose, something I'd never tried before. Back to back, seated, legs crossed. Our spines aligned, breath synchronized. Eyes closed. Stillness. Not the cold stillness I'd known with Laura in the final months. That distant, waiting silence filled with tension and unspoken truths. This was the kind of stillness that healed. I never expected this, Sierra said quietly, her fingers laced with mine. Me either. Does it feel real to you? I opened my eyes, turned to face her. Yes, I said. For the first time in a long time, it does. She asked me once, not long after I moved in, if I still hated Laura. No, I said. I don't. Even after everything. I shrugged. I think I hate the version of me that stayed quiet for so long. The guy who thought love was about endurance. She nodded, thoughtful. And now I think love is about being seen. Not tolerated. Not survived. But chosen. Every day. Sierra didn't respond. She just leaned in and kissed me. Soft, slow, with none of the urgency we'd once had. That kiss wasn't about escape. It was about arrival. Laura still tried, occasionally. She texted sometimes. Small things. Random photos of the dog we once talked about getting. Old memories. Reminders. But I never answered. Not out of cruelty. Out of respect for both of us. We had become the echo of something that only lived in the past. I'd already buried it, and I wasn't digging it back up. The divorce went through quietly. No courtroom scene, no dramatic speeches. Just signatures, a polite nod from her lawyer, and a final email confirming the paperwork was official. She sent one last message after that. I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Not because I wasn't, but because I was. And there was nothing left to say. Months passed. Sierra and I didn't rush. We built something slowly. Sunday breakfasts, late-night movies on her couch, shared playlists on long drives. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes I flinched at old wounds. Sometimes she guarded her heart too tightly. But we met in the middle. Every time. And one night, as we closed up the studio together, I stood in the middle of the floor, watching her lock up, and I realized. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was a beginning. She turned to me in the soft light of the exit sign, brow furrowed. What? I shook my head. Smiled. Nothing, I said. Just thinking how it started. How we started? I nodded. You were heartbroken, she teased. And moody. You corrected my posture like I was made of glass. I thought you might shatter. I stepped forward, closing the distance. I did. She went quiet. And now, she asked. I took her hand. Now I feel stronger than I've ever been. We rolled out 2 mats in the center of the studio that night and practiced together in silence. Partner poses, breath synced, touch warm. At one point, as we balanced in a pose that required full trust, back to back, palms pressed, weight shared, she looked at me and smiled. What are you thinking? She asked. I met her eyes, held them, and finally said the thing I hadn't admitted to anyone, not even myself. I agreed to destroy her fantasy, I said. But I found something real in the process. Her smile softened. She nodded. And together, we held the pose. Not because we had to, but because it was ours now. Ours alone.